another key aspect of the individual process that we are covering as part of your syllabus. So if you see motivation, it is the last topic when it comes to individual processes. We are saying, so we define motivation as that force within a person, within an individual, that affects his or her direction, intensity, and persistence of voluntary behavior. So let us understand what this complicated statement means. So motivation is often referred to in psychology as, or OB context, as a drive, the drive that a person expresses. You have been seeing few faculty teach you last semester. You have been seeing few faculty teaching you currently in this semester. You will see that the motivation of each faculty is different. There is a direction towards how they bring the subject to you. Someone is purely theoretical. Someone is giving you too many examples. Someone is constantly asking you questions, giving you assignments. So the direction is different. The intensity is different. How much you are being pushed. Bring examples, share this, share that. The intensity with which the subject is being handled is different. And the persistence. So every class, I'm trying to ask you questions, give you individual assignments, so that I can give you individual marking for that. Then I'm giving you group assignments. Then you come prepared. So there's a persistence that is driving the way that I teach. My drive, my motivation to be a good faculty. And it is a voluntary behavior. All of us are not doing it because a vice chancellor is looking at us or the dean is monitoring what I'm doing or not doing. It is voluntary. So if you take the example of a person at the workplace, so motivation as a topic has a lot of relevance to work. It ties all that we have studied about the individual together in this one chapter. It is about personality, it is about attitudes, it is about perceptions. What kind of value systems does this person possess? So we say, according to the needs performance cycle, is that there is a need, there is an individual desire in a given environment. So my desires at home are very different. My desire in this online class is very different. Your needs in an offline class will be very different. Your needs when you join work will be very different. So the environment plays an important role. And what do you want? Right now in the online mode, your wants are very different as a student. When you're in the offline mode, your wants, you're on campus, you're seeing us, there is different expectations, there is different tension there. Here you can afford to put off your videos and chill in whatever clothes, whichever position, head on the floor and feet in the air. Any position is okay. There is a motivation that is driving that behavior. You know you're not being watched. In a classroom environment, there is a need for presence. Here, I think a handful of you will respond to my questions, and the rest of you, till I call your names or there is a formal presentation, you are happy. Nothing will go wrong, right? So there is an action that you exhibit that releases the tension. For some of you, there is that motivation to, hey, ma'am is asking a question, let me say. I should be the one to say. I should speak up. Ma'am should know who I am. For the others, the action is chill. It's all right. What will go wrong at worst? Right? There is an incentive that drives your behavior. The incentive to drive your behavior in an online class is very different from the incentive that will drive your behavior in an offline class. So there is some reward for behaving in a particular fashion. This determines motivation. Your course, we are going to roughly run through the various motivation models and then conclude with just 2 slides on what happens at work. So one of the oldest model of motivation, and most of you will be familiar with this, okay, is Maslow's hierarchy model. Anyone has heard the term Maslow's hierarchy?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, quite a few of you would have heard this term, right? So, 1 minute, what am I trying to do? Okay, let's not worry about it. So Maslow is still, it's one of the oldest theories of motivation. And it is popular even today because it talks about something very fundamental which has nothing to do with the workplace. His example was that of a child when it is born. He talks about human motivation as you live your life. To begin with, it's physiological. You're just looking, the baby is looking only for food. It is looking for shelter. It's looking to feel warm, or it wants to feel cool, right? These are basic physical needs, physiological needs. Once these needs are fulfilled, so these are needs of babies, whether they are born on the street or whether they are born in, Cloud9 or at a comfortable home somewhere in the town. They cut across their basic needs, fundamental. Then comes on the safety needs. The person is now looking for, the baby now begins to look for security. It will respond to its parents differently. There is a need to have an engagement. You are now growing. So you're looking for a purpose. A baby cries because it's feeling ignored or some needs of it is not met. So there is a need to feel safe and secure. They are called as safety needs. You're looking at a person which has grown up and now looking for purpose in life, saying, I must have food, I need shelter, I need responsibilities which are of a different kind. I want to ensure I need security, I need a job, I need a source of income, safety needs. Move on to become the love and belongingness. Once these 2 needs have been fulfilled, I now seek something bigger. I'm looking for good friends. I'm looking for at the workplace some kind of, relationship there. I like doing this work, having friends, nurturing a family, being responsible for having others take care of you. So the next need, according to Maslow, is love and belongingness. Once that need is fulfilled, the next set of needs kick in, which Maslow identifies as self-esteem. He says people now become more aspirational. My basic needs in these previous 3 levels have been met. Now I'm looking for recognition. I want to show superiority. I want freedom. I want, status. I want a car, a home, own it, a lot of goods that I want to be known in society, a status for myself, a position. Once these needs are fulfilled, according to Maslow, the last need comes as self-actualization. To be more than just these needs. I'm looking at fulfilling a spiritual desire. I'm looking at being of use to the society. Okay, I get into philanthropy. What did Bill Gates do after Microsoft made those stunning world record profits, right? A sustained innings ke baad, he just shut shop and said, okay, I'm going to set up the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation and work in countries like India and Africa and make a difference there too, where it matters, right? He encashed his shares. He does it on a frequent, every time there is, so during the pandemic, he became one of the biggest contributors to countries that were struggling with the pandemic scenario. Self-actualization, beyond me. all along the pursuit till the self-esteem level is about me. I begin to look at the larger level. This can easily be, you can see examples here of the workplace also. When I'm looking first to get a job, physiological needs. I must have a job that will give me a secure, ensure 3 meals a day. I'm making sure, nahi, I don't want that 8,000 wala job. At least मेरे को 20,000 मिलना चाहिए, right? So here on the campus, you can see the MBA students, placement time is going on, and I overheard a conversation with 2 of them in the cafeteria. नहीं, मैं तो बहुत clear हूँ. Till I get about 35,000, it's not worth taking a job. ऐसे बैठ जाता हूँ घर में, वो job आने दो. So very clear. Then once I'm there, I'm looking at, okay, is there job security? Is there, is there an opportunity to earn more? To earn my incentives 100%, things like that. Then I start looking for good friends, networking, trying to establish relationships with my manager so that I get a promotion, get another break, job break. I network with my friends from my batches. कि कहीं पे कोई job opening है तो बताना. Esteem. Move on to the next where I'm now become aspirational. Affluence is the most, how much can I earn? How fast? By what means? And then I retire and say, Abhi, I will teach. I will teach and enrich other people's knowledge. The second theory is a little different. Frederick Herzberg was basically a sociologist. He was working in the social space, in an organized factory environment. He identified that, look, there is a little difference. There are factors that act as real motivators and affect job satisfaction directly. Have you heard the word job satisfaction anywhere before?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. You remember that. So, according to Herzberg, he identifies that there are some things that a job must have. So unlike Maslow's theory, Herzberg talks about the workplace. He says at work, there is something people seek which has to do directly with job satisfaction, and those are called motivators. So he says people are looking for achievement, that I should, the kick I get from doing something well. The kick I get at the end of every class, oh, good class. I had good participation, students responded, we covered all the concepts I had planned. I think I did a good job of teaching them well. Achievement, a sense of advancement, okay, that I have learned something new today. I was able to, advance. More people participated in the class. I was able to give better examples today. Autonomy, that I have the freedom to how I can do this class. Nobody is saying, you know what, your way of teaching should be this, do that. No, I can decide what marks I can give you for what activities. Challenge, there is some amount of challenge. I have a larger class, how do I engage with them? There should be the challenge factor. I'm teaching new courses, I'm teaching different programs. There is feedback coming to me. I know at the end of this, you will give me feedback. And there is a sense of responsibility. I have to finish these courses, these topics. This is the timeline. This is the topics I must cover. These factors motivate me in the job. Everything else, according to Herzberg, are hygiene factors. He calls them hygiene factors. It is good to take a bath every day. But can you go without bath? Anyone who agrees with me that yes, you can go without bath every day? I have no problem. I think it's a hygiene factor, right? If you're sitting at home and you're doing all your online classes, does it really matter that you should take a bath, shower every day? So, hygiene factors. The term hygiene says that it is good to take a bath every day. But, does that make you a stupid student? No, it doesn't. Okay? It affects job dissatisfaction. You will not feel good. But will it affect your motivation and what you're supposed to do as a student? Maybe not. So according to Herzberg, he lists hygiene factors which are good to have at the workplace. But if you don't have them, it's still people will work and be motivated. Whereas the motivators you must have at the workplace. That's how Herzberg differentiates it. So some of the examples, is a very rule and policy bound, everything is procedured, good relationship, good people to work with, great managers, great salary, job security, good working conditions, cafeteria hai, gym hai on the campus. You have this, sports center where you can play table tennis and some cricket also. So according to Herzberg, these are hygiene factors. They are good to have, but not necessarily must have. So think of startups. A lot of graduates, MBA graduates especially today, and even fresh undergraduates are preferring to work with startups. Why? Because you get everything which is listed on this column, which is called motivators. There is challenge. There will be responsibility because the fewer teams, fewer people, you will be able to advance better. There is autonomy. You will have freedom. You can check with your manager, ye karu kya? If he says yes, you can go do it. So you will have that opportunity. In large established companies, you can happily just go, 9 to 5, come back and take that mediocre motivation that it gives you. McClelland's theory is a little different. He's more a psychologist with a psychology background. He looked at motivation differently. His idea came from, people went to, so he went to a fair, Mela, and there he saw this famous game that is played where you have these small stilts and you throw the loop over it. It is kept at different distances. The further away you throw, the bigger the gift you get. So he got very intrigued. And in the middle of the fairgrounds, he set up his own experiment where he set up these stilts and had the loop that you have to throw. And he found people. So what he did was, he didn't put 3. He kept shifting. Every time you shift, people are willing to play the game. He found there is a group of people. There were few people who would come. So if you want to play the next round, you forfeit. It's something like Kaun Banega Crorepati. So you will lose that money if you play the next round and fail. But he found there are still people playing that game. There were quite a few people who were looking for achievement. They got a high from, I could throw it further. See how far I could throw it. They were not happy with, okay, I threw it this far, why try again, some more. This led him to determine motivation. He says people have 3 kinds of motivation within them. There is a natural need for achievement. There is a natural need for power. I either want to exert power or I want to be under power. Be somebody overpowering me. And a natural need for affiliation, people around, love, belongingness, friends, togetherness, fun time together. So he says all these 3 exist in every human being. But among these 3, one is predominant. So one of these tend to be high compared to the other 2. And that is what drives motivation. So if you go back and look maybe at your parents, uncles, neighbors, relatives who work at the workplace, you can easily remember, I think that fellow is high motivation. Jab dekho job change karte rehta hai. There is others who's high on power, works in a PSU, very proud, shows off his designation, mereko promotion mila, I have such a big team. He's busy demonstrating power. And then there is people who are affiliation, who are very nice, friendly, great place. Yeah, this is a great company to work for. I love the team. I have a good manager. High need for affiliation. Yes, can you think of examples of people you know who belong either one of these groups where it's dominant? I'm not saying the other two are absent. Now, Alderfer looks at motivation. So what Alderfer did, he picked up Maslow's 5 and summarized it and said, no, it's not 5. 3 is enough to summarize how motivation is there in an individual. There are people who are looking at basic existence needs. Very similar to McClelland, he says, look, there is a predominant need to just go to work, come back, do my work, chill. You will find a lot of people who belong to that group. They don't have too much of aspiration. They don't have too much of, fun and party and spend money and enjoy. Basic existence needs. There are those who are high on relationship. They network very well. They have a good contact. They will make that effort to go meet friends, socialize, spend time. High relatedness needs. And then there are people who are just chasing growth. Okay? How much I can do better? Which next brand to work for? Which next position to aspire for? Always looking at growing and doing better than what I did yesterday. Any doubts on this? So these 4 models are called the content model. So these content models of motivation are all focused on that there is something in the individual and that alone is responsible for motivation. We will now move to discuss the process models of motivation. So your content models of motivation are good to know because they are the basis. It is only in the last 50, 30, 40 years that we have the process approach to motivation. That motivation has a lot of things to do. It's not just the person. There are factors around the person that influence their motivation. Clear? So we have 4 on the content theories. From your exam point of view, they are good to know, but these are very important from your exam point of view. And also, this is really where motivation, a lot of research is happening, and it is an area that is growing. So Victor Vroom's expectancy model says that there are 3 elements that drive motivation. So he defines, he's among the first theorists who identifies motivation as a process, that it happens in steps. If something is missing, motivation goes for a toss. According to him, these 3 are valency, that it is a positive or a negative value that the person puts on an outcome. Okay, so during my early 22 years at the workplace, I had a very clear positive value for achievement, for earning a lot of money, progression, position, status, working for big brands, doing meaningful work. After that, that began to get a negative value. My positive value moved towards, okay, now is a good time to, I speak well, and I was teaching even before I came into the teaching profession. Even as I was working, I used to go and do visiting courses at Manipal, at Jain, at a number of universities in Bangalore, Christ, St. Joseph's. Okay, so I used to do visiting there. My positive values shifted towards, okay, it's good to let me, take a back seat. I have earned a lot of money, seen everything done there. Now it's time for me to, do something I really love, which is teaching. So there is a positive or a negative value that people put on a particular outcome. For each of us in this group today, how many are we? How many of us here today? 50 of us. Okay, the others thought they will manage their exams well. All the best to them. The other aspect of motivation, according to Vroom, okay, his name is Victor Vroom, is expectancy. My belief that I can be a good teacher comes from somewhere. Okay, I did it. I got great feedback and I said, okay, so this is a possible second career for me. That I can, put a lot of effort to teach well, and I will be able to teach well. That is going to be really satisfying. And my belief that the outcome, that I will get enough money to, take care, to live, that I will be getting a positive student feedback, that I am good at teaching, that I can, if I put the effort, I can teach students well, and teaching students is going to give me a reward. There is an instrument that is attached. An instrument is a reward, which is both, okay, I get a good salary, I get a good job in a university like Xavier's, I get, good feedback from my students. Let us look at an example. So, I am likely to complete this task. What is the probability that I can do it? So the expectancy that I can be a good faculty is the first part. If I am a good faculty, okay, I will get a good feedback, I will do a good job, it will feel good for me, and students will also learn well. This leads to an outcome. Yes, my job is assured, I will get a monthly salary, which is not great, but good. Okay, and I will work for a good brand like Xavier's, and students will like me. All these are possible to happen if I do this. So if I take another example, this is how it would look. That I'm willing to put in that effort to prepare for my classes, to shift from corporate and come and work in the academic field, that I can be a good researcher, good teacher. If I am sure that yes, I speak well, I have a lot of examples, I know the theory and I have practical experience, together I will be able to do a good job as a faculty. And this, because I do a good job, I'm going to get a good rating, I'm going to get, as I said, all the rewards are there. So people's motivation is determined by how much effort I have to put in. Think of another person like Sadhna, who again is a successful corporate professional. But can I teach? And can I do a good job of teaching? Okay, if I prepare well for my classes, can I actually deliver? Can I stand in front of 50, 60 students and convince them that what I'm telling is the truth? Can I teach them theories, concepts, and use examples? And will they, what is the reward I will get? Will I get a good student feedback? Will the university keep me in the job? For the first 2 years, I'm on probation. After that, I get confirmed. Will I get confirmed? Will I get a promotion? I joined as a lecturer. I want to become a assistant professor. So, reward. This defines my motivation. Any questions or doubts on this? This is an important theory. Please keep this in mind for your exam on next Tuesday. No, Tuesday. Your exam is on Tuesday, I think.
Ma'am, Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay, good. We'll move on to the next process theory. So two other, again, they were Porter and Lawler, were again two theorists with a lot of productivity background. What they did was they just took Victor Vroom's theory and added these three extra elements to it. the ones I have circled in red. Otherwise, fundamentally, this model is the same as Victor Vroom's model. So they said, hey, it's not so simple. That effort, performance, and reward outcome also is influenced by the basic capability of that person, right? What are the abilities and traits? I gave you a second example. What is the ability and characteristics that that individual possesses that I can teach well? I was a great professional, that's okay. You can do meetings, give orders, get work done. But can you come and stand in front of a class with confidence without looking at your teaching notes all the time and teach a subject? So what are the abilities and traits? Can you engage the students? Often I'm giving you activities. Why do I do it? To involve you in the topic, right? So that is, do you have those abilities and traits? And what is your perception of roles? As I said, over the last 2 semesters, you have seen different kinds of faculty. There is a perception they carry about it. Somebody is very strict, somebody is too jolly, someone is too casual, someone just comes in, teaches you all the theory, blah, 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 and goes away. So what is that faculty's perception about the role? And what kind of rewards do they perceive? For me, for example, my perception of reward is great student feedback. For some other faculty, it is, no, I have to finish this course. I have to finish 60 hours and the syllabus. That is the reward that I'm getting. I am an assistant professor. I am not expected to do too many things. Other than teaching, I may not have other responsibilities. So what is the person's perception of what is reward? What I should be doing in my job? What are my abilities? So we move on to the last theory here. Should we take a break? What is the time? It's only 11:20, right? 11:25. Okay. Any questions so far on this? Okay, so let's quickly look at the equity theory. EQUITY may be pronounced as equity and also equity. So when you think of the word equity, you are, so Stacey Adams is a researcher, again comes with a social psychology background, and according to her, she feels motivation is not happening just in a single environment. It is just not about me. If you look at these two theories and the previous theories, it all focuses on the individual. So Stacey Adams takes a different stance about motivation and says, look, motivation is not happening in isolation. Nobody works in one factory, one person doing all the job, right? There are people around me. I am constantly, as a social animal, as a human being. Sorry. Just one minute. I'll switch this off. Sorry. I'm just trying to switch this off. So, sorry. As a social animal, my motivation is influenced by what I see around me, people around me. What effort are they putting in and what rewards are they getting? Are we clear? If I see me and my colleague, me and another person, another faculty of mine are putting in the same effort, but the other person is getting higher outcomes than me. Okay, salary is more, or maybe he has a better designation, or he gets additional responsibilities which are very interesting, or he gets to teach, what should I say, MDPs, do training programs, which I'm not getting. So when I use the word reward, please remember, it does not necessarily have to be just money. It can be promotion, it can be additional responsibilities, anything at the workplace. Two people doing the same performance may experience under-reward inequity. So inequity coming from being under-rewarded. Both of us doing the same job, this person is getting higher outcomes. So you can see the balance at the top right corner, the image there. What inputs am I giving in? What am I getting? What inputs is that fellow putting in, and what outcomes is he getting? I feel under-rewarded when his output, he's getting better outcomes. Equity is both of us are being treated the same way. Both faculty are being treated the same way. They put in the same effort. They also get the same outcomes. I may also, it is possible that both of us are putting the same effort, but I am getting higher outcomes as compared to my co-worker. Okay, I am being called and said, okay, facilitate sessions in all these panel discussions. You will represent the university for that. I am being called and said, okay, you coordinate these activities. Look at coordinating those conferences. And the other person feels that. So the other person is experiencing under-reward inequity. I am experiencing over-reward inequity. All this is influencing motivation. In the first case, both of us putting the same effort, मेरे को कम मिल रहा है. I will look to reach a state of equity. I will either shift the job, or what can I do? I'm not being rewarded. I have been putting effort. I'm not getting rewards. What can I do? Question.
Try to gain more attention.
Okay.
Leave the job.
You will leave the job. You will try to get more. What is another thing which you can do? There is something called demotivation. Yes?
That's fun.
What can that be? I will bring down my efforts so that the balance stays together. I was putting a lot of effort, but मेरे को मिल कम रहा है. So balance is going like this, right? So I can also drop my efforts to make sure that so I will take it easy. I will come at 9:30, leave at 5. Anybody asks me to do anything, मैं बोलूँगी time नहीं है. That is the impact that it has. So Stacey Adams looks at a very important social element that exists in motivation. That constantly we are driven, motivation is driven by a state of, to bring the balance, keep the balance clearly. I will put that much effort as I will get output, as others putting the same effort and what they are getting out of it. So if you look around you at the workplace, most common reason for why people leave jobs, what is it? What are some common reasons?
Low salary.
Low salary. Yes, one of the very good. That's one of the most common, right? Why? So how do you determine that low salary? From where did you get the information ki salary kam hai mera?
Ma'am, comparing from
Haan.
other workplaces.
So equity theory says that you compare, and don't think of comparing just within. So I work for Wipro, I'm looking at the other software developer in Wipro. No, I'm now looking at the software developer who works in Cognizant or works in some other organization. Similar job. And I say, usko utna mil raha hai, now let me look for a job there. Because I'm putting the same effort. I'm good. I've got feedback that tells me that I'm a good developer. Why should I sit here and, this disbalance, mera equity is unbalanced. What is another common reason for leaving the job? So one is compensation. What can be something else? Come on, others.
Not a good environment.
Yes. So this environment has to be not a good environment for me. And, so that environment, thoda usko expand karo. It's like world hunger. I want to solve world hunger means bahut sara cheez hai usme. So environment, be little more specific.
Ma'am, stress.
Yes. So work pressure, right? So you feel that work is too much and what I'm getting as rewards does not compensate work. It's not just work being too, I feel also underpaid for this. If this job requires so much of stress, I should also be compensated with that. So when there is less work, can I work from home? Can I take chutti? Is there a compensatory off that I can take? If stress is too much, if work is too much, then do I get incentives for overtime? So that becomes another reason. Sometimes people also leave jobs because it is not challenging enough, right? Does it make sense? People leave jobs because I want to do something, bigger, something better, something more challenging. So when you are looking at, so you are performing and getting the output of what but you know that you're capable of more. I want to do more work and get more outcomes from this. So I will leave the job. So we can see that the equity theory is very much in play. Now, let us look at some applications of motivation. At the workplace, there are two things that are influenced by motivation. So I think we'll give it 2 more minutes. We are looking at goal setting, and we are looking at what kind of rewards when you achieve those goals. Research over the years has shown that, goals are one of the most powerful tools for motivation. Even a goal set by the institution that you must have minimum this much attendance is a goal by itself. It ensures that you exhibit the motivation to sit through at least so many hours of a course. So motivation is driven by goals. Now, MBO, you have heard this term before, anyone? When you were taught principles of management last semester? The earlier group said no. So there is a very famous management theorist, management researcher called Peter Drucker, who proposed the concept of management by objectives, MBO. So according to this concept of MBO, goals are set by the organization right at the top. So if you take a company like Reliance Jio Telecom, Infocom, or whatever is the name of that company, right? So for the 2021-22, which means year 21, April to March 22. they have set their business goals. So their business goals, the CEO decides that we will increase our customer base by 20%. Now this is the goal set up there. This goal cascades down to the next level. So the head of HR is given a goal. So many people at every point in time, you have to have so many people so that we can achieve this increased customer share that we have to bring. Finance is given a goal. Operations is told you have to set up so much dealer network. Production is saying, okay, bandwidth, how do I ensure? New cables, all that it's happening. Marketing advertising team is given its responsibility. To achieve that plus 20%, the goals are going to the heads of departments. From there, let us say, it can go to each region of the Reliance industry, of the Infocom, right? Infocom, or I don't know what's the full name, Reliance Jio. So it keeps changing, right? It was recently handed over from Anil to the other guy, Mukesh. So the division will have north, south, east, west, each region. So HR there is a HR in North Delhi, another HR office in Mumbai, another HR office in, let's say, Kolkata or Bhubaneswar somewhere, and maybe 2 or 3 offices in the south, one in northeast. That plus 20% customer base is now split. We want to increase our customer base in northeast. So the goal for northeast has now become plus 5 or plus 10. In the east, in Bhubaneswar, Jharkhand, Kolkata, all these cities, Bihar, we are saying, okay, customer base will only marginally go up. Not a very important markets. I'm giving you only an example. So the plus 20 gets split up across. Now, think of so you are let's say a marketing executive joining Reliance Jio in 23, and you are joining their Bhubaneswar office. You will have your little goal. So somewhere you know that the 0.5 quota marketing goal that you carry is part of that plus 20, which was determined by the company. So MBA is how the goal of an organization drops down, cascades down. It's like a waterfall to the bottom of the pyramid, where every person knows why he is doing what he's doing. It is linked to overall goals. So if the company reaches that 20% target, by the year March 2022, all of them will be rewarded. So there is a reward system for high performance. I think in an earlier class, I gave you the example of Infosys, right? How do I modify the behavior of my people? The access card data is used by Infosys to monitor presence of employee. I pay you a salary for working from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. There is an in-house cafeteria, you have, food court, you have sports court, everything is inside. So I will monitor why you're leaving the office. Only if you have completed 9 hours, you get your full attendance. If you are less than 9 hours, I will penalize you. So I will modify your behavior through a reward system. Okay, how do I use rewards to modify behavior? To recognize. So if you walk into a call center, for example, walk into a Wipro or some of these other, like Mphasis. I was there at HP Mphasis for a visit. And I saw that it's like those tickers which go on railway station, airports, you see it in the stock exchange. So just like that, it shows the performance of all the teams in the company. There is a green arrow saying their performance is better today as compared to the rest of the month, the average. It's green. And for a team that is underperforming, it shows a red arrow pointing downwards, saying this team is underperforming. So there is an instant reward system. Everybody gets, every quarter, I get 10 tickets, 10 smileys with that, it's like that fridge sticker, that magnet at the back. So when someone helps me at work, I go and place that smiley on their workstation. So if you see, everyone's workstation has got a magnetic board on top. So at the end of the quarter, each one is seeing how many smileys I got. And if I did a great job, I met my targets, I exceeded my targets, my manager can give me stars. So stars are of different colors: yellow, green, red. Red is like outstanding, green is like good, great. And yellow is, yes, I crossed my targets. So manager comes and gives. At the end of the year, you nominate the best performer. You give them rewards. You give them, checks and holidays, and then you give them trophies. So how do you reward high performance? Should we keep this for the next class? So let me quickly just, I'll stop sharing this and please, which is this? Yes. So yeah, roll number 1. Can you call out your numbers, please?
Roll number 1, present, ma'am.
Roll 2, present, ma'am.
Roll number 3. Roll number 3, present, ma'am.
Roll number 4, present, ma'am.
Roll number 5, present, ma'am.
Roll 6, present, ma'am.
7, yes, ma'am.
8 present, ma'am.
9, present, ma'am.
10, present, ma'am.
11 present, ma'am.
12 present, ma'am.
13 present, ma'am.
14 present, ma'am.
15, present, ma'am. 16, present, ma'am.
Are you watching the screen, please?
I'm 20, present, ma'am.
Very good. Move on.
22 present, ma'am.
23, present, ma'am.
25 present, ma'am.
27, present, ma'am.
29 present, ma'am.
31 present, ma'am.
That's nice.
33, present, ma'am.